Can we get slides on the screen? All right. I hope everyone's having a good time. I know I am. Had a lot of fun meeting up with old friends, making new ones. Um, I've been I had a session yesterday. This is the last one for the week, and then I'm hoping to get some sprinting done. Um, and what I wanted to do today was talk a bit about how we've set up our media library on site Drupal. Because an image says more than 1,000 words, and I think we all know that. And when we look at the image at the screen, if you start describing that, you can say there's kids in a blue stage environment with games and a Nintendo Entertainment System. There's TV screens. And then when you start thinking about it and look better at the picture, you see that there's also a PlayStation in the middle, which is weird because it's an 80s picture and it are 80s games on the screens. But yeah, there's a PlayStation there. There's a Dreamcast or a Sega as well. Um, so an image says more than 1,000 words. And when I try to describe that image, it's kind of hard to do. It's not that easy to describe an image in language. And that's because it has a different part of the brain that it activates. So you feel an emotional connection, and it's another part of your brain that feels it, and it makes it harder to talk about what you see on an image. And that's important because the emotional connection that you feel with images or even with videos or anything else makes it that it's a good way for a brand or someone to make a connection with their customers. So um, when you talk about personalizations, for example, if you want to personalize for impact, what you can do is change the pictures so that if you use a picture of kids for people that are just new parents, they will interact more and have a better emotional connection with your brand. You can use dogs for dog lovers. And when it comes to personalization, images are a great way to get a connection. It isn't that good to track conversions with, because you can't really measure how people are feeling your brand, but it's a good way to use. Images also of pages on websites with images tend to have 49% more views. That's because if you browse Google and you find your search result and you see a page with just text, a lot of people just go back to the search results and start finding another page to look for. So using good images helps you get more views and have people stay on the site and the pages longer. Images also help your SEO. If you set up the meta text correctly, Google will know how your data is structured and it can show an image at your search snippet. It also helps to have good file names and good alternative text so that Google can also show the pictures inside image search. So images are pretty good for helping your SEO improvements. And despite that, we can all see that images are very important for us, for marketeers, and for everyone. Drupal used to be notoriously bad. Um, I've been doing Drupal for a long time, and almost every survey that Dries did, it was almost at the top of the list to have better media management. And luckily, it used to be bad. Since Drupal 8.4, we got media into core, which means that we can structure our media assets a lot better. And since 8.8, I think, media library got in core, which makes it a lot better to interact with for market users that are working with the site. So we're getting there. It starts to be a better system than what it used to be. But I also see a lot of Drupal companies acquiring digital asset management systems, which is, DAM has its use case. It can be used for bigger things than just CMS, but Drupal is actually suited right now to have it set up to be a DAM as well. And I think that's something we often forget when we are building platforms or websites. We tend to focus on the functionality and on the content part and setting it up like to have a good developer experience. But I think a lot of us forget to set up the media library and make it work like an actual DAM does. My name is Steven van den Hout. I'm head of Drupal at Calibrate. I like to describe myself as enthusiast and passionate in anything I do, and that's one of the things I do with Drupal. I've been doing that since 2009. That was back in the Drupal 6 days. So I've been around longer than Drupal 7. And if you want to connect, you can find me on LinkedIn, or we can talk at the booth or something. If anyone has any questions during the talk, feel free to just ask, then we can talk about it. And I wanted to start with a quick demo of how we've set up our media library and how it works with us. And I'd like you to think about it and see if your platforms are set up in a similar way or they're not. And if they're not, would you think about how you would set it up so that you can make an estimate or something on how are we going to set it up. By the way, we're using UI patterns for all the different theming components on the screen. It's using Jin as a backend theme, and then the views uses the patterns from UI patterns to make it a little bit more component-based theming. There's a session about this afternoon that I think will be great as well. So we've seen the media library in the media management role, and now we're going to look at how we are adding images. And we use Layout Builder for our setup. And what I've been playing around with is what I'm showing you here is I've integrated with a stock photo library, which allows us to directly get images from Pexels, which is an open source or a public domain library, and you can just search it. It's still a work in progress. It's not entirely themed like I want it to be. And it's also opinionated in our setup, but if I get some time this week, I will try to make a contrib module for that, because it's fairly simple, and I think it can help people retrieve better pictures. So I think this setup is a bit more advanced than what I see on most of the projects we see from other clients or that we work on. Do any of you have a setup that looks a lot like this, or is it more or less just media library out of the box? Media library? For me, when I think about managing media, there's two things that you want to be doing. There's adding media and there's browsing media. And when we're adding media, I think there's two scenarios that people start uploading data to your system. One is more of a media manager role. That's someone who uses the backend screens and adds images for the marketeers to use. So they have one job, and that is to upload a lot of images at once. And there's this media library upload module, I think it's called, or bulk upload, and it allows you to upload a lot of images at once and then add all the different fields that are structured on the entity at once. So if you upload 10 images, they all get the same fields on each item. And then the media manager can go crawl to the backend and edit more information. So the way we set it up is that we have, and people can add the most. And then the other scenario is for marketeers or editors that just want to write content and they want a detail box that has additional data they can fill if they want to, but we don't want to bug them too much about it here because we want to stay then within the context of writing content. And then the other thing, once we've uploaded all the images, we want people to find them, not just search them. We want them to actually find the image they are looking for. And that means we have to structure our media in a logical way. That means adding tags. And you should think about two ways of how people want to find an item. There's a scenario where you know exactly what the images you want to use and you want to find it as quickly as possible. And there's another scenario where you don't really know what you want to use and you just want to browse through the collection of images on your website. And then you want to find a great one that suits your content. So what we do for actually finding items, we use Search API as a backend, which means that all the data on images can be searched on. Other good one that we set up for some customers is licensing. Sometimes they have pictures that are usually used for an internal part of the website, and there's images they can use anywhere. And then it helps to have a drop down to select that if they're using a public page, that they can only see pictures that are allowed to be used for the front end. And then you can take it a lot further. You can use usage. Is it used in certain marketing campaigns or the channels that are tied to the picture? And when you go really far, and that's more the digital asset management spaces, then you can start adding relations to, let's say, products. If you have a lot of pictures that the product that has product in it, if you tag it with a product, then you can show them at the product page and have relevant images, and you can find them quickly. And you can take it really far and have editors create collections of images around a certain topic and then allow them to browse through different collections here. Yeah, so that's what it looks like in the media backend itself. So you have an autocomplete field that helps you find your images, and you can browse. I've already said this, but you can add more search terms here, which means that you can describe what's inside the image, and then if you're looking for a boombox, people will find pictures that have a boombox on it. If you're looking for shorts, then you can find it. And this is mostly done manually for us, but you could also tie that to Google Vision API. That module, what it does is you upload an image, then it goes with cron and it sends it to Google Vision API and then calculates what's inside of the image, and it throws back all the keywords. So then it's an automated process with AI. It works great if you have English editors or marketeers, but it doesn't work in other languages, or not in Dutch at least. I think there's around 8 languages that Google Vision API supports. And it also tends to be a bit trigger happy. When I tested it, there were people that were wearing shoes on the picture, and then it said sneakers. And if you're looking for sneakers, you don't want every image of a picture there, but it can be useful, and it's something that customers love when you start selling your projects and your pitches. And then, yeah, the stock photo library, I saw that WordPress was doing that, and I thought that was actually a good idea, and I don't think there's something in the community that exists. And it's pretty simple to set it up, because we're using media library entity browser for this. Core media library is great. It's set up to be around the 80% use case and to be plug and play out of the box. That means you don't have to do any configuration. You just enable the module and it works. But it has some downsides as well. I think it's a bit too bulky because the filters there on top are taking up more screen real estate than I would want it to have. You can only upload one file at once, but I think since the latest release, it's possible to do more, and they have a drop zone as well now. And the downside for me was that you can't use another view, and there's a core patch that you could do, and then have some additional configuration to have it switch to another view, but it's kind of hard-coded and opinionated, and it will get a lot of work to set up another view. And if you want to use Search API, that means you have to create a new view that you want to use. So that's why we started using Entity Browser. And the media library, of course, the browser itself, it looks good, it works out of the box, so it's great for 80% of the use case, but if you want to take it further, you'll have to do some more configuration. And we set it up this way. We used to do that in Drupal 7 back in the day, then we set it up in Drupal 8 before media was in core, and we closely followed the media module and how the library progressed, and then we switched back to library for a moment and then decided to go back to the entity browser solution so that we could have the search API implementation. The entity browser, it's a bit complicated on how it works. So there's a display, which is how the browser is shown. Then there's a widget selector, and we've set it to tabs. A selection display is kind of weird, but if you want to use items from multiple widgets, then it allows you to have some kind of basket that you can put items in. So you can select 2 from pixels, 1 from the library itself, and then upload another one and then select it. We don't really use it, but it could be. And then there's widgets, and that's just a plugin that you can use. We mostly use a view for that, and then there's media entity dropzonejs with edit, which allows you to drag and drop an image in, and then it shows you the entity form to add more information if you want. Yeah, this is what it looks like in from when you're adding it from within the content. So it's the same view, it looks the same, only it's in the modal this time. This is how you drag and drop, upload them, the images. And this is something I wanted to talk about as well, because we're using Layout Builder for our setup and we don't know what the aspect of the size of the image will be when we put it there. And that's kind of hard because we don't want the tiny images on top to be as big as the ones below. And there's a module called Dreamage, which helps in that because it tries to look up the sizes that you use with CSS and JavaScript, and then it creates image styles automatically. It's within a range of 200 pixels by default, so it always takes the next biggest image style. And it helps a lot to keep your images crisp and only in the size you want it to. There's one downside with it. It's not that good for performance. It uses lazy loading, but the styling itself, it bypasses the optimization binaries, which isn't that good, especially if you're making the images bigger. If you upload a small one and you make it bigger, then they tend to get a bit big. So what we usually do is use the default image styles for the heroes and the bigger pictures that we use. And for the smaller ones, we can still use Dreamage. And it doesn't have web-based support yet, so there's a patch that you can use, but it's not perfect there. But it's a solution that might help you get where you want to be. And then this is a pretty new one. I've only found out about it last week. It's called Media Library Modify, and that's something that I've been waiting for a long time. And what it allows you to do is to override the media settings on your node or on a specific context. So you can have an image uploaded and write an alt text that suits the purpose of the image in a global way, and then rewrite it for have a specific alt text on the node where it's used. So that's great, and it stores the information on the entity reference, which is a great spot to have it. But it's fairly new, and I haven't played around with it that much, but I had already some problems with overriding the crop and some caching issues, so it's definitely a work in progress. But it's something I'd suggest you follow up on to help people get more context for where the images are used. That was what I wanted to show you. For me, the aha moment was when we started using Search API for the browser, which is easy because it's Vue and everybody uses it already, and it allowed us to have a much better experience. I want to thank Calibrate and Dropsolid as the sponsors and all the other gold and silver sponsors. If somebody wants to stay in touch with Dev Days, you can find us at Slack, at Twitter. And if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask. Anyone? Okay. Yeah. And that's it.